Movies are always better when they're accurate to the source material, right? Before I get started with this video, however, I wanted to plug a couple things real quick. First off, I'm wearing another SimonsRants shirt. I had a small problem with the website earlier, but I fixed it and I put up some more designs, so go ahead and check those out. I've also officially launched my SimonsRants sports page. I have my first video up already where I go through my NFL predictions for this year. And of course, as a reminder, my SimonsRants games channel is still up and going. I post a video once or twice a month. All that aside, let's get to the video. So people are always judging adaptations based off of how accurate they are to the source material. But is that always a good way to judge these films? Just because something is accurate to the source material, does that actually mean that it's really that good? And when they change something of note, does that automatically make it bad? I'm gonna go with no to both of those. My first example is the Harry Potter franchise. Depending on which writers and directors they had throughout the series, they were more or less accurate to the books. I think everybody can agree that the first two movies, directed by Chris Columbus, were the most accurate to the source material in the entire franchise. And it's also up for debate that the third one, directed by Alfonso Cuarón, is the least accurate. And The Prisoner of Azkaban is considered by most people to be the best. How can that add up if being accurate to the source material is the most important thing? Next, I want to look at a series of unfortunate events, and this is an unpopular opinion, but I think the movie is great. I also think the TV show is not that good. And a lot of people do hold up the Netflix series like it's better than the movie, but I don't agree at all. The movie had better acting, better production, better writing, and overall better special effects and everything because it had a bigger budget, but just because it's told out of order a little bit, people got mad. The movie took the source material and filled it out in its own fashion. The Netflix series just felt dull and hollow. Or how about The Prestige? Nobody really talks about that being an adaptation, but it is. The only person to really talk about how accurate it is or not was the author, and he said that it was better than his book. Christopher Nolan made changes, and the author came back and said, yeah, that's better than what I wrote. Or how about Jurassic Park? I think the novel is amazing, but I think the movie's just as good, just in different ways. Another great example is The Shining. Stanley Kubrick took Stephen King's novel and turned it into what's considered one of the greatest horror movies of all time. Yet Stephen King hates the movie and went as far as to make his own miniseries instead. And that's considered garbage. So it's actually possible to improve upon the source material by adding your own thing to it. But that doesn't mean we should just go and make pointless changes. The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings are perfect examples. Peter Jackson made plenty of changes to both, but The Hobbit is terrible, and the Lord of the Rings trilogy is really good. So what changes should we make and what changes shouldn't we make? I think the best way to put it is that the changes should capture the heart behind the source material. And that might seem obvious, but here are some examples. Clue the board game and Pirates of the Caribbean the Disneyland ride. Neither one of these had much source material to work off of, but both led to great movies. Why? Because the people making the movies understood the heart behind these things. They both understood that their source material was based around family fun, and so they incorporated that into their movies. Clue the board game didn't have any comedy or anything like that in the actual board game, but the movie had plenty of it, because the comedy element was brought to the table literally by the family. People looking over each other's shoulders trying to figure it out. Somebody in the corner getting exasperated because they have no idea what's going on. That was all the family fun of Clue, so when you're making a movie, you have to bring that to it. Same thing with the Pirates of the Caribbean. They added the comedy element. They added the adventure element. It wasn't just pirates shooting at people. It was a full adventure. So what's the answer to this question then? This is the best way that I can put it. The source material is the foundation. Even as you read a book, you're building on top of that foundation by filling in different things with your imagination. Automatically, you already have your own adaptation working in your mind. How you see it versus how the author sees it are two different ways. The outside influences affect how you perceive the source material. A character reminds you of somebody you know. Somebody says something to you while you're reading it. The guy playing as Professor Plum flips a table. All these different things influence your own personal adaptation. So when you see somebody else's adaptation, it's automatically going to be different. But that's not a bad thing. These stories are just being told by different people, and so they take on different personalities. Nobody could have told Jurassic Park like Steven Spielberg did. Nobody could have told The Prestige like Nolan did. These stories were meant to be read and adapted by everybody that came in contact with them. Anybody can have their own personal view on it. That's what made Star Wars great in the first place. We had all these different side stories and TV shows and books that people were making up about this franchise. And that's why the new movies are terrible, is they've purposefully eliminated all this other canon that people have made up. If your adaptation adaptation is purposefully killing other adaptations, that's not a good adaptation. So screw you, Rian Johnson, for ruining Star Wars. So that's my conclusion. As long as adaptation understands the heart behind the source material, they can change whatever they want, and it'll still be great. Because the changes are made within alignment of the heart behind the story. So all these different stories that are inaccurate are still great. And just because the story is accurate doesn't mean it's good. I'm Simon from Simon's Rants. That was my rant for today.